Hey guys, so I was wanting to make one of my yearly lists before the end of the year, so this is going to be my top 10 books. Well, scratch that. It's not 10, it's only 7 because I did not have a very good year when it came to books, but so this is actually my top 7 books of 2023. And so the first book, it's called ADHD Explained Your Toolkit to Understanding and Thriving. It's by Edward M. Hollowell. The author himself has ADHD, so it's very much feels like an authentic book, kind of really going into a little bit like the symptoms of ADHD as well as a lot of studies that have been done on ADHD and their findings, and also I think ways to cope with it. And I really thought it was an interesting and informative book. So I kind of realized a few things about myself, things I thought were unique to me, are actually kind of could stem from my ADHD. Other people have experienced it, so it's kind of why I enjoyed this book. And it's relatively easy to get through. It wasn't your stereotypical like, you know, front to back, just paragraph after paragraph. It was more like chunked throughout the books, and so I found it easier to read. But kind of also to go along with that, the Mini ADHD Coach by Alice Gendron. This one, it's a lot smaller, a lot shorter. It's a lot more visual. It had a little illustration throughout the books, as well as small chunks of information on each page, and so it felt like it was easier to read for me. It didn't become overwhelming, and it does again go into like the symptoms of ADHD, etc. But it also goes into like how the author herself kind of deals with the symptoms, some of the things that she does, which did give me some ideas of how to, I guess, structure my life to make it easier to get things done. So those two were good ADHD books I enjoyed this year. Third one, Football 100 by The Athletic. I already did a video on that. So essentially, this 100 of the best players of all time according to The Athletic. Didn't include many current players. Included a lot more older players. Honestly, I was kind of done with it. I kind of got into the football hyper fixation. So since like summer, I've been like focusing a lot on that. Reading a lot of football stuff. Then relatively recently, it's pretty much completely, my hyperfixation is dead on football because it's just become annoying as opposed to enjoyable. So at the time I enjoyed it, but I'm not really interested in it anymore, so it's weird. Next book is The Heretic Royal by G.A. Akins, aka Shelley Lawrenston. This is the third book in the Scarred Earth saga. I believe I did a review on the first one in this series. This one follows Ainsley and Griffin's romance. Honestly, I don't remember much about the plot because her books are very much world-building books. So there's a lot of, stuff that happens in this book that has been built on from the other two. And so it's just, there's a lot of information kind of pieced together. And so this one I believe, listened to once. I listened to the audiobook. I'll have to go through it a few more times before I can really kind of, get it stuck in my brain what exactly the book was about. But of course, I loved the tone of it. It was funny. It was interesting. I enjoyed the characters. I love the continual gag of like Ainsley's sister keeps forgetting that she exists. Because she'll like go and do something, then come back, and they're like, "Oh, we didn't know you were gone." And she kind of gets mad, but I think it was kind of funny. I feel indicates that Ainsley is more, she's able to take care of herself as opposed to some of the other siblings. So her sisters focus less on her, like, safety because she was more self-reliant, I guess. But anyways, I love the book, and so next one, Joker Harley, Criminal Sanity by Cami Garcia. Love the book. As follows: Harley Quinn, who is a psychiatrist, one of those two, police consultant who is on the trail of the serial killer who killed her roommate. And I felt like this was a darker look at the Joker compared to other Joker comics, because this one was more like, I think, grounded, realistic, didn't feel as much as like a comic book, whereas other versions, despite him killing, I felt they were more tongue-in-cheek. You were continually reminded it was a comic book, but this one I felt like it was more, I guess, serious. I liked how it focused more on a psychological aspect of Harley Quinn's life, such as she was a trained psychologist, psychiatrist, I don't know, I can't remember what she is, but she goes a lot into, like, actual serial killers and kind of distinguishing between them, and kind of categorizing this Joker into, that category based on, previous serial killers. I just thought it was so interesting. And there was more of a cat and mouse relationship between Joker and Harley instead of more of a abusive romance. And of course, gorgeous drawings, more realistic drawings, and just great coloring of the comics. I just enjoyed every aspect of this book, to be honest. So, in The Secrets of Vampires, a supernatural source book of our legend and lore by Jolie Lindgren. This one, I enjoyed it while I was reading it, but ultimately I wasn't in love with it, I guess you could say. So, it was a children's book. It looks at the lore of vampires from all over the world and throughout time, kind of how perception of vampires has grown from more like monstrous to more romantic. I thought it was interesting looking at all the different like legends and different cultures that kind of can possibly be related to vampires. There was in Japan, the lady, creepy flying head, the lady with the long black hair that goes, her head detaches at night, I guess, and goes floating away. Very much reminded me of, The Grudge. So, yeah, and something else I noticed, the author very much talked as if she herself was a vampire. She uses us a lot throughout the book. I wasn't sure if she's just trying to make it seem like it's a vampire writing the book about, history of their people or something like that, or if she, the author herself, actually identifies as a vampire. But either way, it was enjoyable enough. And then Our Beasts, I was kind of like, Our Beasts is, it was by Clara Reese. But this book, I kind of have mixed feelings on. For the most part, I enjoyed it, but also I was kind of disappointed at the end. So it's a romantic erotica. I don't know what it was categorized. I got it on Amazon, but it follows a housekeeper, Natalie, who's taking care of her best friend, Dylan, who she's in love with. So Dylan is like this ex-military. She comes from a rich family. She's scarred in, during her time in the military, and so she doesn't think she's lovable, essentially. And Natalie's kind of her caretaker, has been pretty much most of her life, and so we got that relationship. Then Dylan, because she has a hard time with the relationship, goes to the strip club and sees a stripper and becomes, I guess, obsessed with her, and then they develop a relationship, and then there's drama between all three of them. Ultimately, they end up getting together. All of three of them get together by the end, but I was disappointed because I didn't feel like all the relationships were that well developed. I felt like Dylan was so obsessed with Colette, the stripper, because that was so much of the book. And then we got Natalie and Dylan, and I just felt like most of the time, it felt like an employee-employer relationship. Despite Dylan saying she loves Natalie, it felt like the author was telling us that she loved her instead of showing us. I felt like, I don't know, I was just so disappointed with the development between all the relationships. So yeah, that was my 7 best books of 2023. Some of them I'll probably do a review on later, hopefully. Yeah. So, well, if you did like this video, give it a like, subscribe to get notification for all the videos I'll be doing. You guys have a nice night. Stay safe out there. I'll talk to you later.